Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second Calvin Clay People Development webinar. Very excited to have everybody here. We're expecting a number of people to join whilst we start. We are hoping that even though 2020 is looking a bit funny, we can do away with Ghana Man time moving forward. But this is just to say welcome. This is the second webinar. The first one was done in May on remote working. So it was a great session, great feedback. So watch out for more exciting things from Calvin Clay. Now, somebody may say, who is Calvin Clay? What is Calvin Clay? I haven't heard it before. Calvin Clay is simply a people development consultancy. It's new and it's innovative. And their mission is very simple. It's really to equip African professionals and organizations with essential knowledge to reach their full potential. That's one of the things I really love. We all need to reach our full potential. And they provide cutting edge and corporate leadership solutions that meet client needs in this ever-changing business environment. And need I say more, how much the world has changed in just 9 months. So just for housekeeping, most of us are on mute. I think I'm the only one who is allowed to speak now. So if you need to speak, please just raise your hand if you just shake your mouse, especially if your PC is asleep, you can raise your hand. Our coordinator, who I'll be introducing very soon, will let you in. You can ask your question either in the chat room or raise your hand and I'll call you so we ask your question. Now, we're expecting this to be a very interactive session. This is not going to be a preaching session. So our chat room is going to be very, very busy. All eyes are going to be here. So if your chat room is not open, kindly open it now. I'm already seeing some welcomes and some thank you. So just give me a hi, everybody, if you're in the chat room. I can see 39 people here. Just give me a hi, just give me a wave so I know I am engaging, I'm engaging with people. So just a hi to everybody in the chat room. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. I love that that's all coming through. Hi, everybody. So today we are talking about performance management, and in conversations, when we started putting this together, I have engaged a couple of my colleagues, my friends, about how not all of us are very excited about performance management. It's one of the things that a lot of people dread. I won't say most people, because I think some people love it. But today we are going to really talk about performance management, and we have 3 very seasoned panelists with us. Talk about performance management holistically, and especially now, and I mentioned at the changing environment that, well, coronavirus or COVID-19 has changed everything. Ways of working is different now. So we are going to, in this 1.5 hours, delve into what performance management is. Should we really be doing performance management now if we are working from home or working virtually? Goals have changed. So this 1.5 hours, trust me, you're going to have a very exciting and educative session. So just to introduce my panel, my first panel is Irene Asare, and Irene is the CEO and founder for Calvin Clay People Development. So just something small about Irene. She's a human resource generalist at heart. That's elevated her level, understanding and influence to become a regional head of HR, business services director. And of course, she founded Calvin Clay People Development. She's always been passionate about guiding the next generation of leaders, just as she was guided by her role models, mentors, and coaches. So Irene, I'm sure your video is on. It would be good to see you. Just give us a quick wave whilst I go to Akwele Bulekwakwe. So Akwele is the Director of Human Resource in the banking sector, and something very small in Akwele as well. She's a successful, of course, if you're the director, you are successful, Akwele. human resource executive with years of progressive human resource leadership experience across various industries, including manufacturing, telecommunications, and hospitality. So our conversation is going to span all these industries. Phil is currently the Director of Human Resource at Universal Merchant Bank, UMB, where together with her team, she's responsible for ensuring that UMB is the place to be. And then finally, we have lawyer Alex Frimpong. He is the CEO of the Ghana Employers Association. So from the association or from the group perspective, we're also going to have a lot of information from them as well. And my name is Rita Jewa Roxon. I'll be your moderator for this 1.5 hours. I'm looking to have a very, very interactive session with all of you. Some quick acknowledgements of people who've taken time. Thank you all for joining us. And we're expecting more people, currently at 50. I'm sure by the time this afternoon or this 1.5 session is over, we will be at 100. So we'd like to acknowledge Effie Cook. She's the Senior Director for People for Delight. She's based in Nairobi, Kenya. So I say Asante Sana Effie. And then Efwa Yabua, she's an OD consultant from the UK. I hope you're all on. If you're not, I'll leave a message for you in the chat room. And then Cynthia Kudowu, she is the HR Director for Casa Trasaco and founder of HR Network Africa. So that's just some way of acknowledging everybody, but special mentions to these 3 ladies who are also we're looking forward to hearing from them in the chat room and through the session as well. Now, before we delve into the conversation, I'll just ask Irene to give us just a quick recap or just a quick information on Calvin Clay and why she's doing this in the first place. So Irene, over to you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Rita. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be here. And it's, of course, I'm going to say it's a fantastic conversation to have. So just 2 minutes of your time to talk to you about Calvin Clay and what we do. So as Rita mentioned, we're an HR advisory consulting, next slide please, consulting service. And we are, although new on the block, we're very seasoned as HR practitioners. I think what is important is what our thoughts are around performance management, and we have various services that we provide around performance management for organizations. So I'm sure by the end of this session, you shall hook us up and then we can sort of advise you and help you across your business area. Next slide, across your business area as well. Next slide. So as I said, we provide advisory services, and the reason why I think you should choose us is because we're very well versed in the businesses. We know in businesses, we know employees, and we certainly know the various management initiatives as well. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of share with you is that we have a human resource magazine, which is called the Human Capital Magazine Africa. That's coming out at the end of the month, and we're very, very excited. We've got some amazing contributions. We talk about performance management, but we talk about a lot of other topics as well. We've got some fantastic personalities, from the Chief HR Officer Vodacom to the Chief HR Stanbic in Nigeria, plus contributions from Kenya, as well as Fred Swaneker. So we would be grateful when that comes out on the 30th of September, if you can sign up and be part of this new change and this new magazine. And you can contact us on all of these handles. So thanks very much. Back to you, Rita.
Thank you very much, Irene. I can't wait to read the magazine. I'm sure now that it's virtual, we can read it everywhere. It can go to all corners of the world. So we're here to talk about performance management, and participants will be exciting to already see what you think about it in the chat room as our panelists also delve into it. but I know most of us here are maybe familiar with it. There are different conversations about, well, what is performance management? What is the concept of performance management? So I'm going to start with Aquile. So from you, and it's good to know that, I mean, your experience that, cuts across a number of industries. So if I ask, what's the concept of performance management in the first place? What would you say it is?
I think, hello everybody, and I'm very happy to be here, to be part of this session. I think one of the first things I'll say is that when we talk about performance management as a concept, it shouldn't be deemed as one static thing. It's a process, and there are different systems and processes within that process to ensure that we develop our employees so they perform their jobs to the best of their ability. Now, embedded in that process is ensuring that we are strategically aligning our employees' work to organizational goals. So the performance management activities and the processes will focus on the areas that you want to maintain, the areas that you want to improve, the areas that the employee needs to sort of do away with in line with what the organization's objectives are. Very often it is confused with just the one aspect or one system within the performance management process, which is the performance review session. But it is a lot more than that. It is aimed at the development of the employee to support the organization and themselves going forward, because there are lots of things that come in there.
Yeah, so well, thanks. Some keywords I've noted on that. But I'll go to Alex. Alex, what would you say the concept of performance management is? I mean, maybe you can bring in as an association, what would you say is the concept of performance management in the first place?
Well, thank you very much. I think Aquile has said it all. Primarily, businesses engage workers to either deliver a service or produce or come up with a product. And specifically, you may have to ensure that employees are able to account for the reason why they are in the organization. So the whole system or concept of performance management is to, from time to time, have a conversation between the employee and the employer on whether the task is being executed in the manner that was envisaged. And again, how do you ensure that, because businesses change, technology and all the other ingredients that come into play in an organization, how do you ensure that even when employees are performing, they are always upgraded to the extent that their skills can cope with the demands of the job? So when we talk about performance management, it's just for the business and the employee to discuss on how they can utilize both the skill, the talent that they have to achieve the organizational objective.
Thank you very much, Alex. Irene, so this is like our introductory questions for all panelists. Irene, what would you say, I mean, your concepts of performance management is? And maybe why is it necessary? We'll do the job anyway. Why is it necessary?
Sure. Thank you. So following on from my esteemed colleagues, absolutely agree. The way I kind of term it is a continuous dialogue, right? So for example, let's look at it like this. I'm an employer and I've employed you to work for me. I've employed you to work for me to do a job, to do a role. I want you to be able to fulfill that role. And to the expectations, because ultimately it's about productivity, it's about efficiency, it's about financial performance. And as an employee, I want to be very clear on what is required of me. And so therefore we have to come together and we have to be very clear on what the expectations are from both an employer's perspective and an employee's perspective. And for me, what governs that arrangement or that framework is the performance management process, beyond the contract of employment, of course. But ultimately, I've asked you to do something and I want to ensure that you do that, and I will manage you to do that process.
So great point. So more like, okay, this is what I've signed up to do. For me to, as an organization, to ensure that you're doing what our contract is. It's an ongoing conversation, just to make sure we are both aligned, or we are both on the same page at every point in time. So this is what most of us have been doing this in the traditional or the normal setting, okay? Before December 2019 and January 2020 happened. So a lot has changed in the workspace. So there are now different opportunities. People are working virtually. People are have had to find other ways of developing or of achieving their business goals. Okay. So I'll come back to you on the question. So with these changes, and as HR, how are you basically going to ensure that teams are being managed in terms of their performance? So let me just be clear. So there is now COVID-19, things have changed. How are we carrying out our performance management with our teams and ensuring that, we are still delivering what we said we'll deliver?
So is this question for me?
Yes, Aquila, it is for you.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So yes, like you've rightly said, COVID-19 has changed quite a number of things. It's sort of accelerated a lot of the changes in the world of work. It reinforced the value of some approaches, some processes, and also highlighted the flaws in some of them. And it's forced us to think and rethink some of our fundamental concepts of when and how we do our work, and how we measure that work. Now, in terms of managing performance from home, I think that I give a practical experience for virtual workers. I think that in the circumstances, what we have done is understand that, first of all, there's been some accepted boundaries that have been dissolved. Okay, so as at now, we have a situation where employees are working from home. If you want to assess something they're doing, they've got their children in the background, you are inside their home. So it changes the dynamics for everybody quite significantly. Now, in terms of what you do, or what we've done as a practical experience for managing performance, we've tightened or heightened some aspects of the process. So feedback has become a much more used tool. Some of our goals, the goals that employees have been set in the current context, are not really relevant. So those, we've had to rethink our goals, we've had to rethink the objectives that employees have been set. And indeed, for some employees, whether those objectives are even necessary, or the performance management process for those group of people is vital for us to do at this time. So if you take frontline workers, for example, is it crucial that they have the performance management system as it is now? Because you're going to be looking at sort of historical information on how they worked. What is even more crucial as an organization now is to look into the future on how you can impact or improve your processes to ensure that you remain a going concern. So all those things need to be taken into consideration. Of course, there's also the need to redesign some aspects of work. So if the individuals need to be working with certain tools at work, it's important that those tools are available to them, even if they are working remotely. So when you're assessing their performance, it is a fair process, because that's one of the things about performance. It needs to be fair, or seen to be fair. Otherwise, then there's always that subjectivity thing that can be raised. But in terms of our leaders, for example, also, the issue of high EQ leadership has become crucial. So having our leaders who understand emotions, know how to manage emotions in an effective and positive way, so that even if staff are stressed and they are mentally not in the right place, they know how to manage the situations to ensure that whatever targets that have been reworked whatever assignments that are required to be done have been employees. Additionally, I think that one of the things that also works is having check-ins. So whereas at work, you are very close to each other, you can walk to an employee's desk, you can walk to your boss's desk and have a conversation with that individual. It's not the same. The person is at home, so even contacting them, you have to make sure that you contact them at the time when they're available. If you contact them and they're not available, it's very easy to think that they're playing truant, when actually that might not be the case. They may be dealing with some issue. So managers have had to be retooled to manage remote and sometimes hybrid teams, because they have some employees on site and they have some employees at home. So, you know, sort of routine practices that can be carried out on site have to be virtualized, for want of a better term. Some of the changes are uncomfortable, but it is keeping up the communication and ensuring that all employees understand what is happening, are all on the ball at the same time. So it's not, things are not coming as surprises to people. One of the other things also is to be able to manage. I spoke about where people are mentally. It has been a significant period of stress, anxiety, and fear for everybody. I mean, you touch your face and suddenly, oh my gosh, I haven't washed my hands in the last 30 minutes. When previously that was not something we needed to do. So again, we've had to have our leaders understand, be able to understand, and indeed for every organization, if you have, for example, the research on emotional intelligence and emotional says that employees will look to their managers for how they react to sudden changes. So you, the manager, communicates your stress and you panic, and it does have a effect. So it's important that at that level, managers are giving the skills, if they don't have them already, or even if they have them, they're re-strengthened for them, so that whatever is coming up at them, even the changes that happen, employees are able to take up the challenge with a sense of purpose and focus. So if you have any employee assistance program.
So just on the skill, and I want to just check with Alex just for a minute, because you mentioned the tools, the check-ins and all of that. Maybe Alex, if you can just throw some light on, I mean, some strategies that team leaders need to adopt, because Aquila has mentioned a number, but it will be clear, I mean, for everybody on this page, I need to have some quite clear pointers on, so what strategies do I need to adopt? So for instance, Aquila is saying checking. Do I check on my team every 30 minutes? Are you sleeping? Are you sure you sent the report? Or stuff like that. What strategies can leaders, not just HR leaders, and I know there are more than just HR leaders on the platform, adopt to ensure that there's clarity of work, the instructions are clear, and the deliverables are being achieved? What would you add to that?
Well, thank you very much. I think in addition to what Akoli has said, we must at the outset get it very clear that not everyone can work from home. Not everyone can work from home. So the organization may have to review in the first place those who can or cannot work from home. And that must always come within the framework of a policy. Who is eligible, who is available, and all the guidelines that there is to make sure that the organization run and does not fall short of anything, irrespective of where you are working from. So I think fundamentally that should be made very clear. Again, what technological support can the organization give to persons who are eligible to work from home? In this day and age, you realize that many organizations are very security conscious. How can we ensure that, irrespective of where you are working from, there's a reasonable assurance that the security of the information from customers, from other stakeholders are properly protected, confidentiality as well. So primarily, the strategic priorities would come from what does the organization want to achieve? are we going to get individuals to account for what they do? Or now, if holistically, we can have value from customers as the basis for measuring performance of teams or individuals. I think that's a very, very critical point.
Yeah.
Again, you may need to fashion out family-friendly policies, because working from home is quite stressful. In the past, when we talk about work-life balance, it was like having a distinction between working in the office and also having the comfort of being at home. But now, everything is home. Only a few people are able to go to work at certain inconvenient or uncomfortable hours. So how do you balance work, the situation in which we find ourselves, and delivering the organizational goals? So all these things have to come into place.
So Alex, just a quick one, because I know you're a lawyer as well, and you mentioned policy. So is there anything in the labor laws about remote working, virtual working? Well, this is still new to us. Is there anything currently in it? Or if not, are there plans of incorporating that in?
Well, unfortunately, no. If you look at the working hours under the Access 5.1, we do not have specific provisions on this. The closest you can get to is, I think, Section 8 of the Labor Act, which talks about the right of the employer to organize its business. So primarily, how employees deliver on the organizational goals and objectives of their functions is the prerogative of the employer. And in the past, everybody was converging at the workplace. But because it's not possible now, thanks to technology, businesses have been able to find other ways of achieving the same purpose. And for me, I would rather we make it flexible like that. I'm not sure legislation would really help us at this infant stage, because it has its own dynamics on how you can make sure that employees are able to deliver. And employees must be also be given more discretion, more autonomy, and so that they can deliver.
Okay, so Irene, I'm sure you know I'm coming to you, right? But participants, you can start putting your questions in the chat room. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of this discussion. And in the chat room, I have Laurentia, who has been fantastic working on this. So Laurentia, you can also give us a hi so we know you are there. But then I come back to Irene. So businesses have been hit. I think I read about a number of businesses who've had to shut down because of COVID-19. Performance has not been as expected. But should HR leaders still expect the same performance in the midst of everything happening? So people have had to take a salary cut. People have had to reduce their hours of working. Should you still expect the same from me in terms of my performance?
That is the big question, isn't it, Rita? That is the big question that I think that most of us on this call are concerned about. I had an example, I'm not going to say the company, but I was talking to somebody recently about, you know, my organization hasn't had pay rises for the last couple of years. The company is not in a good shape, and you HR, you still want to do a performance appraisal. I mean, we're not interested. So I can appreciate we're all in this together. The short answer is, of course not. We have to do things differently. You know, just as Aquile and Alex have said, so many factors are in play now. We've got our children at home, you know, we've got the anxiety going on. Are you really concentrating on the goal and objective that your organization has set for you? You as a business owner yourself, you're also concerned. It's a very, very difficult time. And I think this is where we do have to adapt. I think that if nothing else that COVID has taught us is the ability to be flexible and adaptable. I mean, this is unprecedented. We have never experienced that. So where before we had various performance management processes, and we'll all remember the annual review process. We were even having conversations then about the more real-time feedback. COVID has forced that conversation. And so we have to, in my opinion, look at the state of the business, look at how we are performing, and we have to adapt. I mean, there are two things. If, for example, we had a strategy or performance management process on paper, first of all, we need to move that digitally, right? As a tool, because now that we're working digitally as one. But I think that the goals that we potentially set ourselves at the beginning of the year or even the end of last year is completely changed. And I think that our strategy, our process, our system needs to align with that. I mean, I appreciate that there may be one or two industries that haven't been impacted by COVID or not negatively impacted. But I think all of us on this call have been impacted in some way or another. And I think my colleague Alex was mentioning maybe, you know, the focus would be maybe different. I read recently where an organization is thinking differently about their sales and marketing people. So for example, they're going to measure the marketing people based on how many people they potentially reach out, not necessarily driven by sales. So I think that we need to do that. Otherwise, I think as organizations, we will be out of touch.
So thanks. And just to add to, maybe piggyback on that statement, businesses still must survive, okay? There's still that sustainability bit of it. Now, what is required to guarantee, not necessarily fine, the goals might shift, the target might shift, depending on which industry you are in. But what is required then to ensure that their business is sustainable, even now?
I think, so for me, so I think that it's a tough one. And the reality is business owners, employers will need to make hard decisions. And I think that we have seen over the last 6 to 9 months, some difficult decisions that employers have had to make, varying everything from, you know, freezing bonuses, having pay cuts, through to losing people. So I think those factors, you know, at the end of the day, the employer needs to make those calls. That aside, if your business is still thriving, it is very, very important to be much more closer to what is happening in your business on a daily basis. It's no longer like we'll do a plan for the next quarter. We will do plans for the next week because we really don't know what is happening. So I think it is also about reacting to where we are here and now today and taking those decisions around performance, because the reality is things are changing all the time. And we need to be much more, going back to what I've said before, flexible, adaptable to the environment.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. Aquila, I'll come back to you. And participants, I'm seeing some questions in the chat room already. Thank you very much. You can keep them coming. Once it pops up in your head, just type it in so you don't forget it. And when we get to the Q&A sessions, I'm sure we're going to answer all your questions. So Aquila, I come back to you. And in your earlier submission, you mentioned, for instance, the working tools, so using technology. Alex also spoke about some of the strategies that is required to manage teams virtually. I know there are a number. Now there are so many apps and things that I use. It would be helpful just for everybody to just brush on what are some of the tools that are available to help manage teams effectively. Back to what Alex said, safely, looking at patient, looking at client information, looking at company information, and still delivering. So what tools are available to managers?
Okay, so thank you. It's a good thing that we have technology, because when your remote team is highly collaborative, they're able to work very well together and do their best. They meet their deadlines. But a huge part of ensuring that is choosing the tools that work for you. So whilst there's a raft of tools out there. You need to determine what works for you as an organization, and indeed what works for your team, your specific team that you're working with. So it's not just the larger organization that we're looking at. So there are the famous ones we have, like Microsoft Teams, that allows you to have meetings just like we're doing. There's Zoom, there's a WhatsApp chat groups, there's Telegram, which has significantly improved the security in recent times. So they allow quite a large number of people. But these do not sort of give you perfect solutions for everything that you want to do. So you probably need to go a step further and look at more specific tools when you're determining what you need. So for example, there's emerging technology that allows you to look at, to have the same sort of communication that you have when you are in the office. So it has advanced audio and virtual reality capabilities. So it feels like you're in the same place. If you're familiar with 3D or 4D, it's something similar to that. There's also, I think it's GitHub that has that space. So you can create a virtual collaboration space where everybody is in the same space at the same time. So they have access to the information that they need to work. They have access to the people that they need to work with. And very importantly, also allows for what I would call the water cooler magic. You know, sometimes you get up from your desk to go and get water from
the water cooler magic. Water cooler magic. Okay.
Yeah. You know, those sorts of serendipitous moments when you get up from your desk, you're going to get the water from the water dispenser, and you meet your colleague on the way and you start talking about the football match over the weekend. You start talking about some work that is going on in another unit that you have to make an input into, and it gives you a different insight into the work that you are also going to, or you hear your boss talking about a project that you're working on that you can provide information for. That sort of thing can be lost when you're working remotely. So those sorts of virtual reality tools like GitHub, which allows you to have like a networking session or have people in one space at the same time working, and you can actually do the banter. I had the chance to sit in somebody's meeting like that, and it was quite interesting to see them talking as if they were sitting in the office talking. There's also what we call the Internet of Things. So using smart devices to connect to your workspace or your home to provide efficient solutions for whoever the end user is. So there's artificial intelligence such as Alexa for Business to help you schedule your business, your meetings and join your meetings. There's these are quite advanced tools, but there's one they call the presence robots, which I know some university abroad are using to help connect remote employees with on-site workers to support teams that need to be at work to review students' papers or have access to their their systems in the workplace. But we are right, we need to have build some sort of collective intelligence, and I don't know whether it's a word, but you have to intelligentize the workplace. You know, when you do that, you leverage what is your greatest asset, because then all the sort of stresses around not being at work get removed, and it allows your greatest asset, which is your people, to be a lot more productive. So there's a raft of tools out there. Some of them are extremely expensive and some of them are sort of futuristic. They're still working now, but every organization needs to have their own tools that will work with them, for them. So if you have an organization or for your business, you need your staff to significantly network. It will be useful to, again, invest in something like, the IT people have something, the NIT Hub or NIFT Hub like that, where you can network with people in all sorts of places. So you have instead of standing in front of somebody and having a cup of coffee or having your glass of beer in your hand, you're actually sitting in your house with your glass of beer in your hand and you feel that you're in that person's space. So it's also a learning opportunity. So you're learning what is happening in your industry from your peers locally, from your peers abroad. So there are a lot of tools. The important thing is not to go out and start looking at the huge ones. There are small things that we can do to build on. I know some businesses who have not gone beyond Zoom and WhatsApp. because that is what works for them and it works really well for them. But if you're a larger organization, you may wish to look at the advanced audio and virtual reality capabilities that exist and use that to your advantage to support your teams when they're working at home, because the social isolation can also bring into effect all the issues of loneliness for those people who work as a significant part of their social interaction. So all those things will support ensuring that people are, because the person is depressed, they really can't work effectively. So having those things in place to ensure that as much as possible, the work space is what it used to be for people, using these tools will significantly help.
Yeah, fantastic. And I see in the chat room, somebody says, I didn't know there was Alexa for business. I didn't know that either. I actually just noted that down. It would be good to just ask Alexa, tell me this, and then I'll have all the information. I mean, that would be so amazing. Indeed, the world is changing. So just participants, this is the second Calvin Clay People Development webinar. We are talking performance management. So far, I had a very, very exciting session. It will be good to see your feedback as well, how the session is going for you, and of course, put in your questions as well. Actually, I'm not done with you yet. So you mentioned it's wild technology stuff. So as an employee, I mean, what skills do I need? I might not know how to operate Alexa for business, or what skill do I need as an employee myself to make sure that I'm also delivering in line with achieving my goals for the year?
Okay, so I think that for a lot of employees, quite a lot of that skill will tie around being able to work remotely. And for you to be able to work remotely, it's crucial to have Irene has spoken significantly about adaptability, but your self-motivation is also crucial. Self-motivation and focus, because there's no manager or boss to check on you, or supervisor or colleagues to check on you as regularly as you would if you were in the office. Your time management skills are also crucial because you benefit both your employer and yourself. And you're on your own. You can decide when you want to start working, rush through it, or take your time and do a good job. The skill to be able to work independently and be resourceful in terms of your problem solving, because all this will come up when you're working from home. When you need to be adaptable, your resourcefulness in solving your problems will be key, because all sorts of things will be thrown at you. If you're working with people in the different time zones, you need to think of innovative ways of making sure that you're all on the same page at the same time. The very common issue of Wi-Fi not working or internet issues. So you need to be adaptable and innovative in your thinking like that. And your team player and collaborative skills are also crucial, as it would be at work. But whilst you're working at home on your own, it doesn't mean that you're no longer part of a larger team. You are more of a larger team, and your collaboration is even more important now, just to make sure that everybody is kept informed, you're fulfilling your duties on time and being accountable. Last but not the least is your tech savvy skills. COVID has forced a lot of us to become a lot more tech savvy than we normally would have been. And if we haven't, we still need to use this opportunity to do so, because one of the things that COVID has done for everybody, I think, that is provided as an opportunity, if not to start on a new slate, to be able to rewrite our slates. Okay, so that if there's things that you didn't know how to do before, or there's skills that you didn't have before, or there's skills that you didn't know you could use in other ways, you will find that you are learning to use your skills, you are learning to use your capabilities in other ways. So even if your job is not a technological one, you need to feel comfortable with both software and hardware, because IT is not going to be in your house by your side and teaching you what to do. So in terms of the personal skills, yes, your adaptability, your comfort in working with tech, being a team player, being collaborative, your ability to work independently, be resourceful, are skills that will serve you well during.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me go back to Alex. Alex, we want to hear the macho voice in the room. And initially we mentioned work-life balance, and now there seems to be, it's like a merge between working and, so can an employee be called upon at any time of day? Well, because you're working from home anyway. So if your boss needs something at 9 p.m., can the employee be called upon at any time of the day to deliver something, to deliver work?
Well, thank you very much. We are not in normal times. So to the extent that now your home is your workplace, if need be, once the organization require a very particular information which is very urgent from you, I'm sure time may not be a barrier. Under normal circumstances, even in the normal working arrangement, when the organization needs you, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, even in the dead of the night, anytime, any day, you can be contacted. So I think that because of the extraordinary times in which we find ourselves, I'm sure these may be some of the nuisance that both sides should be prepared to bear. But it comes back to policy.
Mm-hmm.
The organization must make sure that within the framework of that working from home policy, there should be guidelines on working hours. Are all of us going to start work from 9 o'clock up to 3 o'clock? Or would each work according to his or her schedule, or depending upon the team's own working arrangements? Which one will better suit the organization? Mm-hmm. And how does the organization support by way of equipment, technology, and even ensuring that the physical environment is conducive for the organization's business? Because mind you, if you are working from home, and you are still a representative of the organization. So to the extent that maybe you are having a Zoom conversation and maybe some other members of the household are intruding here and there, what does it speak of the organization and the person who is executing that assignment? So for me, what is most important is that working from home has come to stay. Organizations, rightly or wrongly, must be able to farm out professionals, managers, leaders who can work from home and try to resource them, particularly the physical environment, the technology, and all the other things that they will need to make sure that they are worthy ambassadors of the organization. Well, at the end of the day, the organization must be able to achieve its objectives. Otherwise, then the organization would have to devise every means to stay and survive. So we have come to see how businesses are taking different kinds of decisions, painful at that, to ensure that the organization survives. Yes. So every now and then we are inundated with requests for one action or the other. Does it conform to the law? How does it impact upon my HR policy or whatever? But the bottom line is that the organization must survive. And this is the time that dialogue between the employees and management and every other person who has a stake in the business to make sure that the survival of the organization is far more paramount. And we must be able to ensure that we empathize with the management and also empathize with the employees so that at the end of the day, once we're able to sail through this pandemic, the organization will be healthier. And
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then at this point, I'm just going to shift a little bit into another critical point in managing teams. And I'm going to talk about employee engagement. So Irene, I come to you. With everything that's going on, how do maybe HR leads still ensure there's some level of employee engagement with working virtually or working from home and all of that? How, and still ensure, because we know studies have proved that an engaged team will deliver. So how do we ensure that whilst working from home, I'm engaged enough to deliver?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. I think it's really important because this all for me stems right back to performance management. And I would say that, again, we have to be different. We have to think things differently. You know, we don't have the benefit of having someone sitting opposite us, meeting them every day. So we have to be deliberate. I've heard lots of interesting practices that are going on at the moment. Team meetings that don't really talk about team particular goals, maybe like a Wednesday check-in for half an hour, just everybody brings their coffee and sits down, or their tea or whatever it is, and sits down and just speaks. I had a really great example, but also I have to say you have to be a bit mindful, where a manager delivered to employees' homes, and if they're comfortable with that, of course, a gift, just a small gift. It gave them the opportunity to kind of say, look, I'm reaching out to you. I think you can have managers where we pick up the phone. You know, a lot of the time we have teams and we pick up the phone, I need this and I need that. Why not pick up the phone and just say, I'm just checking in, I'm just seeing how you are, how's it all going? Because we are all under some level of stress. I mean, I've just been talking on LinkedIn about thank you. I mean, we can't underestimate a thank you. You know, a very nice, you know, I've done something, or you've done something, you've delivered it for me in the middle of the night or whenever it was, and I'm really, really appreciative. I mean, some of the things that I have done in the past is I will say, for example, we've been working I'll give, you know, the team time off, or we'll try and work, start later, or, you know, just try to be flexible. I think that when we're dealing with recognition, I think also we need to be deliberate though. We need to be very deliberate. I've had lots of examples where as managers, I'm not sure that we are mindful enough. Our employees are doing a lot of work for us. And I think it's just important to take time out and just be very mindful. We're very aware that we're in a pandemic. We're very aware that we're in new times, but it is people that we're working with. And so it's very important that we stimulate people positively. So still, you know, for example, there's other things, send a gift. I mean, a lot of the time you'll go out and have lunch or after work drinks. You can send a gift. And these days we have small packages that can be sent, food parcels or whatever, just saying thank you very much for the time and effort that you've done. So again, I think the gestures are small. They don't have to be big gestures because we are financially, you know, we're in financial difficulty as we sit, but I think there are little things that can be done.
Yeah, great. So thank you, Irene. I think I've put some notes. I think the thank you bit is really important, and everybody loves a compliment. Everybody loves a compliment. So really, I think it's important as managers to be mindful when somebody does something exceptional. Just say a simple thank you. So just let me acknowledge Monos Asampong. Hi, Mono, thanks for joining. And also Claudia Otu logging in from the UK. We are excited you are part of the conversation. So I'll start moving into the chat room. And Laurentia is going to help me. We have some questions. I'm going to take them from bottom up. And so I will either direct the question to a panelist, or if you've spoken on that already, I might link that back to you. So we have a question from Antonia Mensa. She's saying some organizations are returning to work. Do you think businesses should go back to pre-COVID performance management practices, or should these practices change further? I think, Irene, I think you will take this question. Shall I read it again?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, read it again for me, please.
Yes, sorry. So Antonia is asking, some organizations are returning to work. Mm-hmm. So do you think that businesses should go back to pre-COVID performance management practices, or should these changes or these practices change further?
I think that it's hard for us to go back to the previous. And I think I know what Antonia is talking about when we say, look, we've been so long at home. I mean, some of us are still working from home, right? So we're sort of transitioning slowly back into the workplace. of course, I think we have to adapt to that. I don't think it's easy for us to say, okay, you're all now back at the office, so we're going to go back to annual review and we won't speak to you until the end of the year. I think that, you know, what came with COVID is change. And we should be able to be adaptable to that change. I think that we have to also have a period of adjustment because, you know, think about it, as an employee for the last, 6 to 9 months, I've been kind of running my own show. Yes, my manager checks in from time to time, but I've been managing how I do it, when I do it, if I do it at midnight, if I don't, and all of a sudden I have to kind of transition back into the workplace. So my view is we must transition with that. And if we talk about performance management, and I know for the HR practitioners on this call, let's be honest with ourselves. We started a conversation on performance management way before COVID came about. We were talking already about real-time feedback. We were already talking about how we change the performance management cycle because, and I speak on behalf of many employees, I haven't yet come across many employees that say that the performance management process is fair. You know, it's still very subjective, it's still very much favoritism and all of that kind of stuff that I know that people have talked about. So I think we need to use COVID and the opportunity that it has presented to us to think differently going forward about performance management, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Irene. And I have a question for Asantewaa. This question I'm directing to Alex. And Alex, Asantewaa is asking, will it be fair for an employer to expect more from an employee during this pandemic period? An example is a B2B organization with its target customers folding up. So the target customers are actually folding up. Is it fair for the organization to expect more from me?
Well, I think that I don't know when and how the target was set. If the target was set within the pre-COVID period, then one assumes that there were certain conditions that they thought were present. But if COVID has changed the narrative, it has changed the equation, then necessarily the employer and the employee may have to review the targets that have been set so that they will take into account the reality of the situation. But to look at what happened pre-COVID as the basis for measuring the performance of the employee during or after the COVID period, I think it may not be a proper thing to do. So a conversation around that subject should be able to bring clarity to the expectations from the organization and what the employee is also expected to do. So I'm not sure with that dialogue, they can really reconcile the differences. And I'm not sure an employer can take that against an employee.
So Asantewaa, I hope your question is answered. So go back, have the conversation, and as a colleague of mine would say, always go with your facts and figures. I think it's really helpful. So my next question I'm throwing to Aquile, and somebody is asking, Kweku is asking, what do you do as head of HR when executive management, without your input, set targets for staff, which you think is unattainable because the necessary inputs have not been provided to the staff? So just to repeat that, Kweku is asking, what do you do as head of HR when executive management, without your inputs, set targets for staff which you think is unattainable because the necessary inputs have not been provided to staff?
Okay, so I'm smiling and I'm sitting in my chair properly because I think that, first of all, the performance management process is a business tool, okay? And it is not HR owns the process, but it is a business tool, and that has to be understood. Now, there would need to be, so what I would do in this is to have a conversation with the boss and find out where they're coming from in terms of setting their targets. Now, mind you, this whatever objectives or goals they are setting will have to be drawn from the organization's deliverables or strategy. And so they're working to deliver that strategy. So they wouldn't hopefully have pulled it out of the sky. Now, once that is done and we are clear that this is supporting this part of strategy or delivering this for the business, we need to talk about what is needed to be able to deliver that, because you can't send somebody to a farm with a bucket and you don't give them a whole bucket. Okay, so you need to make sure that whatever is required to do the work that they are required to do is available. Okay, so then that discussion will be had. If it is some training that they are required to have, that will be discussed. There will be some review of some somebody else's job to support what they're doing. That has to be discussed. But
can you please, participants, can you just make sure you're on mute, please? Challenges from working from home.
Yes, yes, typical example, isn't it? So have that discussion with the staff involved to understand what their challenges are, what they think their requirements are. But I think this can be avoided to a large extent if the managers are clear on what is required of them in the performance management process, so that HR's involvement is not so major, and so they are owning it and doing it with the employees. But yes, I'd have a conversation on both sides to understand what the expectations are and what is required to be delivered and how it will be done and what is needed for that to be done. And then take steps to work with that manager to ensure that it is provided, or where the goals that have been set are not, well, as it were, smart is cliche, but are not smart. Then take steps around ensuring that they are so, and that the employee is well tooled to be able to deliver.
Sorry, Aquile, I have my pen up. I have my yellow pen up. So I think the key challenge for Kweku here is executive management. They've set the targets without you, the head of HR. We are saying we need this developed, we need this achieved. But he, as head of HR, no, my people do not have the tools to deliver this.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I must have misunderstood you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but management is still expecting. So the question is, what does he do as a head of HR to ensure we are providing the tools required for our teams to deliver?
These tools, are they tools that are required in terms of skills or physical tools, as in IT, what? And I think that once something that is required to be delivered by the business, again, much of that previously would apply. If it is something that is required to be delivered for the business and is expected, then there has to be provision to ensure that what is needed to make sure it happens is available. Okay, now I am not quite sure why executive management is setting targets with expectations from HR without HR involvement. I'm not quite sure how that happens or why that should happen. Okay, so that is also another question that you have to make to ensure that that conversation does not happen and you get saddled with, sometimes, to be honest, you'll find that there are some of these expectations that are set that are, they're not castles in the air, but they are things that whose time is not now. Okay, so those conversations really should not happen without you, the HR person, and you get saddled with this. But if and when you do get saddled, you should be able to go back and have a conversation about what is possible. And this is where I think that as the HR person, you will need to understand the business properly. So when you go back, like you said, facts and figures, you know what you're talking about. You understand how the business makes its money. You know what is required to do this. You know why this is required now and why this is not required now. And so you can go and have that discussion to, sort of unemotionally, but facts and figures, have all your information together. You understand what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you may not win all the, get all of it removed. There will still be some understanding of what is possible and what is not possible.
Yes, and Irene, let me just pick your brain on this particular one, especially from the consultants. You get to engage with different people. One, how do these happen? So management has set this well target.
Sorry, Rita, was this for me?
Yes, I just want you to just add a little bit from the point of a consultancy, because you will engage different sectors, different industries. One, is this advisable, and how do you as an HR manager position yourself so that this does not happen?
Okay, so Risa, the only challenge I had is I got cut off and I had to just log back in, so I missed the beginning of your question.
Oh, okay. Okay, now because I have time, I have quite a number of questions. I will come back to you on that. I'll come back to you on that because we have so many questions and I want to really do justice to all of that. So I'll take the next question. And the question is, can performance management be nuanced to fit the style or circumstances of individual employees? I think, I don't know who wants to answer this. Can performance management be nuanced to fit the style or circumstances of individual employees? I leave it open. I don't know who wants to go for it.
I'm happy to contribute. So my view is, I mean, when we're managing people, we always use different styles. So I think what is important here, let's get the baseline right. The performance strategy, the performance process and policy remains consistent. We can't say that Irene has a different performance strategy or system, Rita has a different. The company needs to be very clear that this is how we performance manage in this organization. But what I think is important, and this is where the skill of line management or HR practitioners come in, the way in which I manage Rita is going to be different to the way in which I manage Aquila, right? So because people respond differently to different kind of goals. So for example, you can decide that everybody has the same goal, but the way in which you manage Irene to deliver for her to deliver versus the way you manage Aquila will vary and be different. And I think it's actually a very important question, because I think sometimes the perception might be is, why is this person being able to do this and get away with this? And why am I not being able to do that? We all respond differently. I've had scenarios where I, as an HR practitioner, I've provided someone with information. The same information, 3 people, 3 different reactions. Somebody is reasonable, somebody is very upset, somebody no reaction. So I think it's important to say the performance management strategy and process that sit above everything cannot be different, right? But the way we execute that will be different. So i.e. salespeople will be managed differently from administration, from manufacturing and so on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Irene. Alex, this one has your name on it actually, specifically to you. And the question is, hi, Alex. Many employers have had to pay their employees reduced wages, understanding that we are all in uncharted waters. Is this legal, given the provision in Act 651? Also, how long can the employer be allowed to do this? And finally, does the employee have a leg to stand on, as it were with the Labor Commission? So this is a 3-in-1. This is a 3-in-1.
Okay, I'll try.
Please.
Well, in the first place, the organization until COVID was paying every employee normally. Now, COVID has entered the fray and everything has changed. If the organization is not being able to produce these goods and services, ordinarily it should be able to shut down. But shutting down will not be in the interest of all stakeholders of the organization, including the employees. So you need to strike a balance. How do you empathize with the employees? By finding them something, because they also have families to feed, in the hope that once the business bounces back, they will be ready to also contribute their quota. So you realize that for many of these organizations that have really reviewed their salary and other compensation practices, it is primarily because these are extraordinary times and the organizations are unable to generate enough revenue to pay the employees. Hence, these measures to make sure that the organization survives. Because half a loaf is better than no bread. We have seen instances where organizations have invoked the legal clause of force majeure or frustration of the contracts, and for that matter, they've sacked employees. Because when they entered into the contract, it was not foreseen that there will come a time when the organization would have to close down for reasons out of their control. For instance, an airline industry, you are a flight attendant. The policy is that the organization has closed its airports. The country has closed its airports. So where are you flying to? It means that you have no job. So if the organization would want to help by way of giving you something, I think it is time for also for all of us to understand that, painful as it is, we should be in the position to bear with the employer and empathize as well. Because the easiest thing for them to have done was to say, sorry, there's no business, go home. That is why elsewhere, employers are being given stimulus packages to sustain employees while they don't have any business for them. But unfortunately, in our part of the world, because of our own circumstances, that was not possible. So if employers are paying something for all of us to keep body and soul together, I think we need to really bear with them at this crucial time, because as we speak, not many organizations were even able to pay half salary or even a quarter of a salary. Some simply said, we cannot pay anything. It may sound callous, it may sound unreasonable, but the reality is that the business was not making money, and for that matter, they were unable to pay the remuneration. Lawful or unlawful, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm the one to make that determination. If an employee feels strongly that the employer is not on the right path, I'm sure the Labour Commission will be there for all of us to witness what happened there. But I can assure you that in the event that that happens, there's a possibility that because the causal factors were outside of the control of the employer, they will be very difficult for you to find the employer liable.
Thank you. I think, Pauline, I hope your question or your 3-in-1 is answered. There are so many questions. I'm trying to really cover all of it. I'll take the next question from Marilyn, and I think Aquile, you can take this. Marilyn is saying performance management involves what employees do and how they do it. With working from home, how do we, into bracket, HR and line managers, ensure employees are still living company values and doing the work the right way?
Okay, so that can be a tough one. In terms of our values, we have behaviors that come under those values that show that you are living the values. And I think that for some organizations, what you would do is to look at those behaviors and look at the ones that are absolutely critical at this time to make sure that they get their work done. So you would make sure that everybody is clear on what the expectations are in relation to those values. If I give the typical example of a bank, for example, we know that your integrity and your ethics for anybody is crucial, but for us is beyond crucial. Okay, so those are the things that, and the areas where we know there could possibly be, holes where people could want to, so I want to meet my deposit target. So what can I do to make sure that I meet my deposit target? It's not illegal, but ethically, is it right? You know, so have people understand and have continuous conversations around this. For us, what we've done is look at our values and sort of, for want of a better word, harp on the areas where we know that mistakes can happen, and get people's minds attuned to making sure that you're consistently paying attention to these things. The other thing also is, you know, she rightly spoke about line managers. HR very often is saddled with this responsibility, but it is the line managers who really do this work. So it's essential that they are on the same page and have a clear idea of what the expectations are in terms of the behaviors. And really, bottom line is you have to trust your employees that they will do the right thing all the time. If they've lived their values in-house whilst they were working with you, it's likely that they will be doing same off-site. But you also need to keep your checks and balances in place to make sure that you pick up any anomalies that might show up and investigate these without making the person think you don't trust them, because then at the end of it also you start deciding, oh, they don't trust me, when you actually haven't done anything wrong. So it's a very fine line to work, but the element of trust has to be there, and the clarity on what the value behaviors are. You can't suddenly start emphasizing behaviors that you haven't talked about in 3 years and expect employees to live by them. You know, so it needs to be an ongoing conversation that you'd be having with them about what the expectations are. And it can be thrown into your virtual huddles that you are having on a daily basis, in the conversations that happen, the communications that go out. One of the things that has come out of COVID, at least I think, is the communication has been almost like a flood. Every day there's information coming out, and I think businesses are doing a lot more, managers are doing a lot better in terms of keeping in touch with their teams. And these conversations can be thrown in. So you have a very informal conversation with somebody on what they're doing, how they're doing this, the processes they're taking to do it. And you can pick out some of these things.
Fantastic, thank you. Emma, I see your question. I see you've reposted it. I'll get back to you, but if Yeboah has something to say, so if you can just unmute your mic and very quickly, because I have less than 10 minutes and I want to still address as many questions in the chat room as possible. So if you can just unmute.
I lost you. Okay, you're back.
Okay, I don't think Ifwa is ready. So let me take Emma's question. Okay, Emma, I'll give your question to Irene. So Emma is saying, when salaries are reduced, how can management ensure productivity will not be negatively affected? So if I bring my local tree here, what's in Misikaso? And you still want me to do the same work, you know? So that's what Emma is asking.
Okay, so thank you very much, Rita. You know what, I'm going to be very unconventional. Emma has purposely asked me this question, and I would like Emma to reply to her question, because as an HR head herself, she very well knows what the response is before I respond. So Emma, you're hiding behind the mic. Please give us your response, because I'm sure you've tackled this yourself. Can we unmute Emma?
Host, kindly unmute Emma. Let's hear what
Okay,
Emma
can you hear me,
say.
please?
Yes, we can hear you. Emma.
Wow, Irene, oh my God. Okay, what I suggested to management was this. Undoubtedly, we cannot help the situation, right? So cutting the salaries, yes, we would need to cut. But what I suggested to them was to have a flexible arrangement with staff. And for those whose working hours can be reduced, let's see if we can do that. If we could encourage job sharing, more telecommuting, and then provide things like maybe if lunch or something to just buffer the situation. But here lies the case where my people don't understand what I'm saying. they don't get it. They feel we should understand that this is the problem, and we still need to work the hours and put in the same efforts without any sacrifice for management. And honestly, I don't know what other magic to perform, so I need help.
Okay, thank you. So you see, I mean, in the world of HR, it is not as cut and dry. is it? There is so much grey in our environment. And I think what you were saying about when the salaries are reduced, I think Alex mentioned it, and I'm sure Aquile did as well. We have to, there's a reality check for all of us as employees as well. We need to be reasonable. I mean, you can see when an organization is really in trouble. I mean, maybe this is the time, my view would be that, Emma, you need to communicate clearly where the business is at. I have found over the years that also as a business leader, we're not always very good at that clear communication because we use a lot of words and we don't want to scare people and all of that. By the time you've left the town hall or the communication, are we in trouble? Are we not in trouble? We don't know. So I think it's very important to be very, very clear on we are in dire straits and we are in dire straits and these are the measures that we're going to need to take. Now, part of that is maybe we'll need to reduce your salaries and other expenses as a result of doing that. But that is short of reducing or cutting headcount or making people redundant. So, you know, I think that my view is, having worked for a number of organizations, this is where you as an organization or an employer, you need to be authentic because equally employees can also see. No point in saying you're going to cut the salary and then behind the scenes, the organization is doing all sorts of interesting things with the money that they say they don't have, right? So there's a level of authenticity. Once you're authentic about this is our situation, we're looking at all of these measures before we get to cutting salaries or cutting roles or whatever. I think, therefore, there may be some level of sympathy. If not, I think also, Emma, you're not going to please people all of the time. And that's one thing I've come to realize in HR. We cannot please you all the time. So the business has to make those decisions and we have to live with those decisions and we have to move on from those decisions. So the things that you're suggesting, I think, are good things to suggest as a way forward.
Thank you, Irene. Emma, I hope that's helpful. Yes, I'll take the last question and then I'll throw the final question to our panelists because we just have under 4 minutes to end this very exciting webinar. So Alex, you have the final question. The question is, Van Dyke, so Van Dyke is asking, what of employers in times like this towards SNITs and GRA? What would be the obligation of employers in times like this towards SNITs and GRA?
Well, thank you. I think the obligation to SNIT is to pay earnings on your tier 1 contribution at the end of every month. So depending upon how much you earn at the end of the month by way of salary, you have an obligation to pay the social security contribution. In the situation where an organization is facing an unusually difficult situation, the rule is that you should inform the trust and have or come into a common understanding with them, then you can reschedule payment. So that will be your obligation towards the trust. If you do not do that, and you simply fold your arm with the reason that business is not good, if you default, penalty is awaiting the organization when you want to pay. So I think we need to be very clear about that. For GRA, it's a question of pay as you earn. So if you pay the employees, the employer has an obligation to deduct the taxes from the earnings and pay. So if you default in doing that, the GRA may also have a go at you. In all these instances, whenever you have any difficulties, you may have to fall on the immediate office of these organizations to have a quick discussion with them on the difficulties of the organization. Otherwise, you may also run into troubles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll throw my final question to all panelists. So Aquile, you start, Irene, and then Alex. So the final question is, what are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future effectively with managing the performance of virtual teams for business growth. And I'll repeat that. What are the most critical changes we must make to face the future effectively with managing the performance of virtual teams for business growth? Just very brief, if you can give me a 1 minute, I will be very happy.
So, sorry, I think there has to be some very serious reflection on what has been learned from the forced experiences that we have all had to have around changes to how we work and for how each organization to learn from the valuable lessons that they have been, if it's how productivity is measured, how decisions are made, etc. Future of work has been talked about, but it's here with us now. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for organizations to model they wish their future to look like. And the performance management tool is a perfect tool, process is a perfect tool to do so. As the performance management is now the basics work, and so if you don't have a system in place that is working, now is the time to establish one. Treat the performance management process as a business process and not just as an HR process. Go back to basics if you must. Train your managers. Teach people how to give and receive feedback, how to do their goal setting, creating individual plans, provide the inputs for recognition and reward like Irene spoke about, which is extremely crucial. And even more importantly, define future plans. The fact that we are working virtually does not change anything. And I dare say that one of the biggest hits to any employee's engagement at work is a poorly done performance management process. It really takes a lot away from the employee. So we need to tighten the things that we are doing currently, the goal setting and all that, to make sure that the processes that we have in place are suitable for now and for going into the future.
Thank you. Irene?
Awesome. My input and add-on is about companies and employees need to be adaptable and flexible. We are, I mean, if we're talking about critical for the future, we use the word agility a lot. I think agility has really come to life in this pandemic era. So I think we need performance management to be much more agile. We need to have a flexible kind of approach to performance management. So for me, it's about ensuring that, you know, we take into account that we've got employees either at work or at home or at flexible working. We've got scenarios where business environment can change very quickly. How do we as employees adapt? And how does the employer adapt? And I think I would go on to say, thinking about digital. You know, we've got a lot of these performance management processes that are very manual focused. I think this is the time to think about how we can make sure that we digitalize our environment.
And Alex?
Well, thank you. I think that work has changed, and I'm not sure it will ever be the same again. When, where, and how we work is going to change and change forever. So we need to reset work. How do we adjust and adapt, as Irene rightly said? In addition, employees may also have to have the spirit of accommodation and adjustment, because it's very, very, very important. How do we accommodate the new situation so that we can cope with the changing demands of the jobs? We have to reset leadership. How do we build trust? How do we ensure that we're able to carry employees along, listen to employees, and also react in the demands and concerns that they have? Empathy becomes very critical here. And above all, we need, in going forward, to reset the role of HR in the organization. Because if work rules and regulations are going to change, if technology is going to hold sway, if we are not going to be confined to a place, but people can work from different parts of the world and at the same time deliver results, then necessarily that function that really is able to manage people, which is the most important resource, must necessarily have to change. Thank you.
Thank you
Rita, can I just say
much.
one more? Rita, can I just say one thing that Alex?
Yes, Irene. Under 1 minute.
Yes, just one thing. I think Alex has raised a very good point. And one thing that we have to think about when we're dealing with performance management is we're now also competing globally for our skills. So for example, although we might all work in various countries, there's some roles now that we're competing. Our performance is measured by somebody who works in LA, who works in India, who works in France. So we have to also think differently about our own performance. You know, or employers in the future will have a lot more choice. So that's something for us to think about.
So thank you very much, our panelists. I think you've more than done justice to this. Actually, I wish there was more time. And if you asked a question in the chat room, I couldn't ask it. Apologies. I'll post it to our panelists. I'm sure we can find a way of still answering it for you. But just to say thank you very much, Irene Asare, CEO and founder of Calvin Clay People Development, Akwedebule Kwakwe, Director of Human Resource from Universal Merchant Bank, and as they say, lawyer Alex Frimpong, CEO of Ghana Employers Association. Thank you so very much. Now, the recording of this session will be posted on the Calvin Clay website, and Laurentia, who is going to give me the thank you very soon, has posted that in the chat room, so you can just click on it to take you to the website. It will be all the recording, everything will be uploaded there. Also in the chat room is the feedback form, and it's really important that we have your feedback. How did you find the session? Is there anything else we can do better? Because at the end of the day, we need to bring such a strong community. So Laurentia, I'll just hand over for you to do, as they say in Ghana, the vote of thanks, and then we are out of here.
Well, thanks so much, Rita. All too soon. We are already at the end. It feels so short, but we are grateful for all of the things we've learned today. Irene, thanks so much for giving us such an excellent platform to have this all important discussion. We are grateful for your time as well. Akole, thanks so much. You made it so easy to engage with you. Sometimes I felt like, oh, I'm disturbing this woman, but then you made it so easy. Thanks for your time out of the busy schedule. You still made time to be with us here. We are very grateful. Lawyer Alex, you are gone, but I mean, he's actually been out for all this while working outside of town, but then he still made time to join us. I worried him a bit, but then he was still responsive. We are so grateful to him. And Rita, thanks for moderating this event for us. It's been so engaging. Special thanks to also Irene Asare Bidiako, who is an HR consultant and practitioner, and Pauline Apafram, who is also a consultant and HR director. And a special thanks to all of the Talo HR mentioned mentees who've made time to be with us here. We are so much grateful. It's nice meeting all of you and hope we meet together one of these days again. And to our very, very engaging audience, we are glad that we had you here. You've been so engaging, so interactive. We are very grateful and hope to see you soon. Please make time to follow Calvin Clay handles on the various social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and all of that. The handles are Calvin Clay or Calvin Clay People Development. We are glad to engage more with you on other events. As Rita said, we will post the recordings on our website, www.calvinclay.com. We will have everything there and subsequent programs posted there as well. So please follow us, get to our website, and you have all of the details you want there. Thanks again, and you all have the best of the evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.